Did you know that children who don't graduate elementary school before adulthood are stuck as uneducated for their entire lives? In real-time gameplay, these uneducated citizens could remain in your city for over 43 hours, creating decades of inefficiency that impact your economy, workforce, and even crime rates and homelessness. In my opinion, this is one of the most important mechanics in City Skylines 2, and one that is often overlooked. Today, we're making sure Sunny Isle has enough school capacity not just for the current cohort of students, but for generations to come. We'll be revisiting the city's existing school system, upgrading facilities, and in some cases, completely overhauling the entire campus. This isn't just about education, it's about transforming the city's suburbs and preparing Sunny Isle for a major expansion. As we grow outward and upward with higher density neighbourhoods, we're working to create a livable and local school system that serves everyone. So stick around as we explore how education shapes not just our neighbourhoods, but the future Sunny Isle itself. Hello everyone, I'm Scunny, and today we're playing City Skylines 2. In the last episode we built this beautiful train station area along with expanding the neighbourhood around it, and it's looking pretty good, and traffic has calmed down ever since we put this in. We still have a few backups down here, but nothing too crazy, and as I said in the last episode, I think most of the issues is actually caused by waiting taxis, so I'm happy with that. The queue doesn't really go any further than this roundabout, so it is pretty manageable. So at the moment we currently have a capacity for 10,300 students in elementary school. However, we do have demand, so there's 13,179 eligible students. So it's quite important to meet your elementary school demand, because if a person in your city doesn't complete elementary school, then they won't be able to go to high school, and then they will be classed as uneducated. So at the moment we've got 7.4% uneducated citizens in the city, which is okay. Most of our population are slightly more educated, but if this number grows at the same rate that the city is growing and modernizing, then we may not be able to build the kind of city that we want, where we start to develop offices and higher level industries. So today we're going to go through the build district by district and see what needs to be added, and also trying to add services locally. So we're going to start down here on the old town on the hill, Mont Clementine. So at the moment we do have one school, and this school is full, of course. It has a capacity of 1,000 and we can upgrade it, but let's just double check to see how many eligible students are living in the area. 2,400, so we're way under providing. So we need to add another 1,500 places. So easy enough, we can upgrade this, and I'm curious to know what this looks like. It adds these little classrooms onto the back, and it's a bit wonky back there, so it should straighten it out a little bit. And that looks pretty good to me. Nice little addition, very subtle. I think most of these wouldn't really be that suitable in an old town like this, such as the small elementary school. Then we got the city one, which is just far too big. It's just not to scale. And something like the urban elementary school, it's a nice size, but again, I don't think it really fits the aesthetic of the area. So we're probably going to go for another French elementary school, and this kind of just blends in. You can barely even see it. You can see we've got quite blank walls on either side, but the front is lovely. And I've just noticed we've got this horrendous looking ginormous block of a building just sticking out, and it just looks a bit odd. And again, we've got a few missing buildings which I think have been destroyed in fire. One of the pains of using Plop the Growables is sometimes if a building is destroyed, then it doesn't rebuild itself. So that's looking a little bit better. It's just one of those things, if you want to create something custom, you just always have to think about coming back and make sure that it's still looking good, and everything else is looking fine as far as I can tell. So, disaster averted. And in the process, I think I did figure out where I wanted to put a school, and I think somewhere further inland, I think down here might be a good spot, so that if we do over provide any services in this area, there's people in the civic quarter area that might be able to make use of the facilities as well. So we've got a block down here which is in between Linden Lane and Coleridge Street, and if we go back to our French elementary school, we can see that it's a pretty good fit. We could probably have this facing either one of these streets. I'm thinking we go for Linden Lane over Coleridge Street, since this gets quite busy sometimes, especially during rush hour. Whereas we can have people kind of walking down Linden Lane. So let's turn off Anarchy, and we're going to plop this in, and we're just going to square it up with the corner here. And we do lose quite a few buildings. I think they were mostly offices, so I don't feel too bad about losing some residents. Or losing some properties, because I'd rather kick businesses out than people. as awful as that sounds. Anyway, we'll just remove a few of those buildings, and I think, yeah, this is a pretty good fit. I do need to have a look at downloading a few murals, because again, we do have this large white wall, and it might be quite nice to create an art piece here, especially given that it's a community building, being a school. Anyway, while we're here, we're going to go ahead and upgrade this so that we will have 1,500 places, or 1,250. I thought it was slightly larger than that, but fair enough, it's only a small extension. I don't expect there to be that much of a difference between that and the base asset. So now we're providing, my maths is correct, 2,500 places. And if we have a quick look at how many students are in this part of town, it's 2,400. So we're providing just slightly more than what we need to. With this backside, I think we could have a look at adding one of these new little pocket parks. And I saw one that had a few benches on it, and I think that might be quite a nice fit for the area. And if I find the right menu, yeah, this is the one. Is it the one with the... No, the one with the trees I quite like. So we'll put that in here. And the trees are nice and shady, provides a nice spot for people to come. But we could also swap these trees out. So yeah, I tested this out earlier, and I found that the trees did end up reducing in size, and I think it's because of the proximity of the building. I think maybe there's some sort of overlapping conflict between the two. But I did subscribe to Tree Controller, which I'm sure most of you already have in your mod library, but it's new to me because I just never really thought I needed to control trees in the game. But there's a feature in here which is called Change the Tree Age tool, and you can change the age of trees on buildings, which is quite fun, so you can upgrade those. Alternatively, you can swap the trees in the building, so if I want to use coconut palms here, I can do, and I think that looks pretty good. I like that. It provides a bit more shade into the playground when the sun is on the other side of the road, at least. And also it gives us a clearer view of the park itself, which unfortunately looks like is full of homeless people at the moment. But yeah, I think that's a nice little addition to the area. And given this street is so narrow, it's quite nice to be able to break up the space and create these little sanctuaries along the way to the beach. Okay, moving on from Mont Clementine, we go to the Civic Quarter and Reuben. So I'm going to group these two together because the Civic Quarter itself doesn't really have that many people living in it, nor does it have any schools other than the college. If we have a quick look at how many elementary students there are here, it's around about 600. If we have a look at Reuben, this is probably one of our more populated areas, including the children from the civic quarter. That's 3,800, 900 students we have to cater for. So at the moment we have Garnet Lane School, which holds 1,500. We have the extension at the back, which holds 600. Then we've got one down by the river, which also holds 500. In total, we've got capacity for 2,600. We are falling short to about 1,200 students. So we could build a new school in a new neighbourhood, perhaps out here near the train station or past the cricket field. But I do want people to live near the schools. So we're probably going to have to redevelop a block or two in this neighborhood here, and we do have quite a lot of single family residents up here, and it might not be a bad idea to extend this school development out by one block. And I think the perfect asset for that would be the new Japanese elementary school. So we have a quick look at this one. This one has capacity of 1,000, but I know that we could upgrade it. And this one is just shy of being big enough to fit in that block. So we are going to have to move the streets over, and we're probably going to lose some of the zoning. And while we may lose a few residents here, we can start to densify some of the zoning, increasing the population in an area that is well served with city services. So I'm going to grab the 2-lane road. Let's upgrade this. Let's bring it along. So we are going to lose quite a few homes. Let's first of all remove the zoning from the affected streets. So it'll be all these along here and this one. And then we're going to lose all these down to this section here. And there's a couple of single family residents here, which I'm just going to remove as well. So this fits nicely here. I did have to move this road over by a couple of cells, but while we're doing that, we can also upgrade it to a regular 2-lane road so that we've got a bit more capacity coming through. A lot of the roads around here are quite small. If we get the opportunity to upgrade a road, I'd rather do it now, so that when the city does grow to become more dense and more populated, we have higher quality roads to build off. The annoying thing about this Japan asset though is we do have a slight odd rendering issue with these fences, but it doesn't look too bad. From a distance, really far away, they do stop rendering and they kind of look okay. But yeah, there's a certain distance and it starts to look a little bit odd. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the upgrades we can add to this. So we have a capacity of 1,000 already. We have the extension wing, so that will add an extra 500, so we'll put that in. And then we have the gym, which doesn't necessarily add any capacity, but it does increase outdoor recreation and well-being in the area, and I think it looks pretty good. And having a pool in a hot climate like Sunny Isle, I think is great. So at the back here, since the city has invested so much in adding more school places, I'd imagine they'd also want to build some social housing in the area to help those that are less fortunate be able to live closer to schools and improve their overall life and well-being. And I really do like the way this asset looks. This style asset really does remind me of the UK, I think it's the UK medium density. If we have a quick look at this, there's a variety of different sizes. Let's just zone a few in and see what we get. Yeah, so these are the three that we could probably fit down this strip of land here. So this is a self-contained L-shaped residential block, looks pretty good. Then we've got this tall residential block followed by this slightly wider H-shaped residential block, and it's these that I think would really suit the area, and it would kind of look like the whole thing was built at one time. So I don't think I'm going to go for this big tower here. Maybe we want to put something larger down there, but I think along here we're mostly going to use a mix of the H-shaped one and the L-shaped one. So let's just see what we can do with these. Okay, so while that does look a little bit repetitive, I quite like the repetition. And you can see what I'm saying with the similar construction style to the school. This really does make the area look a little bit more cohesive. And I did leave a little bit of space between each of these buildings. So one unit is 8 meters, and there's probably another unit if you combine these two gardens. So that's 16 meters between the two. You don't really want to be looking into each other's windows, do you? So for these sections, we could just add a few bushes. We could even maybe having a look at some of the pocket parks again. I'm not sure if there's any that would fit here. We've got the canopy covered park. It doesn't fit. Yeah, so we've got the mini park and the tiny park. So we could just add these in. That looks quite fun. And it just adds a few benches and a nice leafy tree. And I think a big oak tree or an alder would be quite nice just to provide a bit more shade. And even with our anarchy, it allows us to place these. So I'm going to push this back, see how far we can go. I think there's good. And it just provides a bit more shade and a bit more density to the overall urban landscape. Yeah, that looks quite nice. And I did leave street parking along Heather Street. I think that's fine. We don't necessarily expect there to be a lot of people coming through here. At the back of this property, I think we could probably do something a little bit more grand. And I did keep some of these row homes here, but I'm thinking we could remove those and start afresh. So I'm going to remove all of them. And since we're in the process of densifying the city, I think we could take a look at a special building that we unlocked in the signature buildings tab. And this is the one I'd like to look at. So the UK City Apartments. And I think this is probably going to be another controversial build in Sunny Isle, because this will essentially be one of the highest buildings in the city after the three large low rent buildings that we built a while back. But this one's going to be much closer to the center of the city. And I think this would look really nice as a centerpiece. It's not too tall and it's not pretty, but it certainly is a feature on the landscape. And if we step even further back, you can see what an impact that makes on the overall skyline. But isn't it always the case though that the first few skyscrapers or the high-rise buildings that you get in a city always end up being the ugliest ones? So if we take a quick look at this building, it has 136 households. So this is helping with our homeless population, moving them into affordable accommodation, which this building would have. There we go, a few simple details. We've got a little children's park on the corner here. Looks like the fence is clipping a little bit into the road, so we'll move this over. There we go, nice, nice. And we could throw in a couple of flower bushes along here just to tidy that up. Nice, lovely. Yeah, like I said, a little playground here. We've got a little 2x5 here, which fits really nicely into your area, and you don't want large buildings next to large buildings because again you're just going to get people looking into each other's windows and it just feels a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, we will probably get to the point where the city will be dense enough that people will be happy to live in skyscrapers next to skyscrapers, but at the moment we've got just enough space to spread everyone out a little bit evenly. And on this corner we've got one of these little Japanese convenience stores, which I think just looks great. A little textile store, Denny Denims. So maybe we can imagine it's Denny Denim school uniforms. And yeah, I think that would be a nice little addition to the area. This street is still super narrow, but I don't mind it. And we got a little walkway in the back, which is nice and sheltered, and we've got a few people using it already to take their dogs. Yeah, really happy with the look of this. This asset just looks incredible. Look at that shot with the sun in the background. Absolutely gorgeous. There's a couple of areas out the front here which we could probably detail up a little bit. I imagine this is quite a high traffic zone, so let's give the students a little bit more space to walk. And I think we could use the regular pavement path, but if we use this invisible one here, I think that might be quite nice. Bring that through here, and that even connects up to the asset itself, and then we could do the same on this side, and then we could just come through and add a nice surface. Let's see if we've got a nice tiled surface. This one is kind of like a diagonal tile. I think that looks quite interesting. Let's see what this looks like. Let's connect it up to this. And to finish it off, we can use some of our lovely custom bollards along here. So let's give them a 2-meter gap. And then we'll just place those along here. We do have a little car park, so we do need to be conscious about that. And then we just spread that along here just a little bit. And I think that's a nice little detail along here. I do think it's looking good. But I am a little concerned now that we've got this wider street here. I've mostly been using these wider streets to represent some of the arterial, well, not the arterial roads, but the connector roads between the arterials. And given that we've got so many people living here now, so there's 30 in each one of these, 30 households, and you can imagine a household can be anywhere between 1 and 6. Like, it can exponentially grow. We don't have that much parking, so I'm thinking I might use some of those custom parking roads, but instead of just spamming this all the way across, I might add an access road from Garland Lane and then create a one-way system that prevents people from wanting to drive through here. We already have the one-way system, so most of the grid is going up one way that way and then down this way, and we've actually destroyed the one-way system by adding this wider road in. So I think just a few simple changes and we can make this street quite a lot quieter and better for residents for parking. So we've got the parking on the street now, and we've added these little tree sections at the end. Though I'm thinking the trees are clashing a little bit, so I might remove the trees on one side of the road just to, you know, give that one tree a little bit more significance. I like that. And it's by the park as well, so that should cover up some of the potential noise pollution that the park might make for this block of flats. And then, yeah, similar over here, we can remove that tree, keep it on the school side. Schools do create noise pollution. That's always something to consider if you have a quick look here. See, the orange tone signifies that this is a noise polluting created building. So trees along here is actually quite a good idea. And we can even add a couple here as well. Don't really want this parking here, and we're using the alders, And we'll put them on that side of the road, and yeah, that creates quite a nice little quiet neighborhood. And we do have a little bit of parking at the side of the road, which I think can be removed. I think we can only add... Can you add grass? So you can add grass to the side of the road. That's interesting. I think they will leave it because it looks like it's getting a lot of use at the moment, and I don't want to undersupply parking. But at the same time, I don't want to oversupply parking either. And this just feels like to me, this feels way more realistic from my experience of these kind of urban places. Have a little bit of angled parking, a bit of street side parking, and mixing it up with a few of these trees. And yeah, I think this looks really nice. It's a very nice, cozy neighborhood. Oh yeah, I'm loving this. This is looking really good. We've got the nice little shady street now, and the way we've done these roads with the one-way system really does reduce the amount of traffic coming through here. Although I'm a little bit worried that we've only got a single point of access for this whole area, and that's at the top of Heather Street, which in itself is a cul-de-sac. It has access all the way down here. So I think what we might do is we might flip these around. So instead of bringing all the traffic through the back of the area, we'll filter it through, and then we can have the exit come out of Garland Lane. And we might even want to upgrade this to a two-way street just to allow a little bit extra access, because I'm a little bit worried if there's a fire or something around here, it could be quite catastrophic. Yeah, I feel a little bit more comfortable with that. As I said, we've got a little bit better flow through here now. So we've got access points at the bottom of the road here, at the corner of this school. We have another one up here near this block of flats. And then to exit, they can come through Sycamore Lane, and they can either exit at the bottom of Garland Lane or further up here. So we've set this as a two-way lane, and then this is just a regular one-way lane. And yeah, I think this is a great addition to the city, and we're starting to bring a little bit more density and providing more access to schools, more access to affordable homes. These have really filled up quite nicely now, and we haven't just got single person dwellings. We are starting to see families in here. So we've got the Emerson family, which have 7 people. That's good to see, and this is probably some of the most affordable housing in the city, given that we've got so many people living within such a small footprint. And then each of these, I think, contain around about 30 families or 30 households. So As this levels up, we could potentially see this double, as we did with these tower blocks here. I remember when we first built these, they had less than 100 people in each one of them, and now we're looking at around about 250 in each of these. So that's something to consider when you're adding new areas to your city, that as the buildings level up, the number of residents increases, and then also the demand for services will also increase. So this school has now a little bit of capacity, which is nice. We've got around about 11 places for students available. This one has just a few, and then we've got the new Japanese school, which is already looking like we're fully fulfilling all those spaces. So let's have a look at the South Bay area and Leaside. So Leaside was quite a small build. I'd say it's more of an extension to the Reuben neighborhood, but it's kind of in between because it does butt up against South Bay. And in here we have around about 2,000 residents, and we only have the one school which we're using as an impromptu cricket club. So this one currently holds 1,000 students, and if we have a look at how many children we've got in the neighborhood itself, we've got 550. So we've got plenty of capacity for students in the area. And although this will be full, probably with students from other neighborhoods, as we start to increase the number of school places through the city, a few more spaces should open up here, which is nicely. And then moving on to South Bay, this is another neighborhood which has seen a lot of leveling up. Most of these buildings are level 5, I believe. It doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of wealth in the city overall. It's actually one of our bonus attributes. We've got a +6 for wealth. It doesn't surprise me that most buildings are at their highest level, and even these little row homes can contain up to 30 residents in that one, 40 in that one. It's quite impressive, really. So it's no surprise that this school is also full with 1,500 students. And out of the neighborhood, we have 1,600 children who would be eligible for school. So it would be good to add a little bit more capacity through here. Now we just need to figure out a good spot, because I do usually like to keep a little bit of space, green space around the schools, so that this could be a outdoor play area. But given that we've got demand to increase our school offering, we might want to have a look at adding a new school building here. But I'm maybe looking at this little corner here. We could see if we could add a small extension here. And I really like the look of this urban elementary school, and I don't think this will be the first time that we use this asset today. I think since the city's growing, we really do need to increase the amount of space for school students, and I think this one just wouldn't cut it. It's only got 300 student capacity, whereas this one gives us a nice healthy 1,200. And I think this also has a very similar color palette to the existing vanilla elementary school, and I think it really does make really good use of space. There's barely anything wasted around the edges. We do have a little playground at the back that we can have a look at shortly. It is going uphill a little bit, so let's have a look at the contour lines. We might be able to flatten this out a little bit, or we could face it around the other way and have the buildings closer to each other, so that students transferring from one building to another don't have to navigate across a car park. So let's have a look at doing that. Okay, simple little addition. Nothing too crazy or outlandish. We've got the new school extension. So this does add a lot of capacity. So this had 1500 originally. This will add a further 1200. And we also have the possibility of upgrading this in the future. So at the moment there's a playground at the back, which I quite like. But we can always add the extension wing if we want to. This doesn't remove all the playground equipment. You can see there's still some on the roof terrace along with some nice outdoor seating. But for now, I'm quite happy just keeping it as it is with this ground floor version of the playground. And we also have the addition of adding a urban playground on the roof if we want to. Again, it's not something which I think this school needs just yet. But what I quite like about this build is using some of these new one-way pedestrian single unit roads, which we kind of did have before in the road builder, but this time they work quite nicely with other roads without getting any of the glitchy connections. And also there's street lights, which were missing from the version I had from road builder at least. And we can create this nice little walking turnaround area, put in this little micro park again, these little mini parks. We've got one here, nice little outdoor seating area. I imagine you could have your lunch, and then a little waiting area just for the parents who want to pick up their students. Now, in addition to adding the baseball court, we lost some parking for the school. And instead of adding any new surface parking, I added this angled street parking. So we already had a one-way lane, which was actually heading in the opposite direction. But I really wanted the angled parking to be on this side of the road. So you don't get to choose which side of the road is. It's always on the passenger side of the road if you're driving on a left-handed city, or if you're on a right-handed city, it's always on the passenger side if you're using the asymmetric parking road. And I think it's better to have it on this side because there's less likely to have any school children in the street to reverse into if they're being picked up in their car, which is on this side of the pavement. So most of the kids are probably just waiting on this side of the road and then jumping into the cars when they need to. And that's if they're being picked up from school. I think in the city that we've built, we've built so many local schools that I can't imagine people needing to get either a car or public transport to school. And in fact, this is reflected in our happiness. Walking distance to elementary school +5, so we're getting extremely high benefit from dispersing the placement of our schools around our residential areas. Oh, and before I forget, in between the Christmas and New Year, so this has been recorded over a few weeks, I've been quite busy, but in that time I have been playing around with the recolor mod, and I wanted to just make some subtle changes to the colors of the roofs of the existing assets that we've got in the game. And I think just having a few more of these terracotta roofs just brings a little bit more kind of color to the build that we've got in Sunny Isle. And next up, I'd like to have a look at the other side, what is being called the cheap side. So we've got the warehouse district here, which isn't the most desirable place to live, and we did have quite a close proximity of residential and industry when we first put the city together in the first few episodes. But with that, we did receive a lot of complaints. People were falling ill because of pollution, and we still have a few remnants of that. So we've got a couple of single family homes, we've got these row homes here. But to buffer it, we've put in large parking lots. We've got commercial buildings. And something that I did on a members only video was build this small school campus. So we've got a small high school on this side, and we also have the elementary school over here, which no surprise, are both at full capacity. Other than that, and one of the first schools that we put down over here, that's all we've got in this area. So we've got capacity for around about 3,000 elementary students. But if we have a look at how many children live in this area, we've got 3,133 in Caplin, and we have 1,300 in the Harbour and Market. We're currently providing around about 3,600. I did forget that we had this small elementary school down here, but instead of making any additions to these existing schools, I think I might actually have a look at replacing one of them. So this one down here has quite a lot of space out the back. There is a little play area, so they've only got a small field, but they do have a playground with this one. But we do have this large farmer's field at the back, which I think is ripe for opportunity for developing something a little bit long-term, higher capacity, something that maybe replaces this or is an add-on. I'm leaning more towards a complete rebuild, given that this is one of the most central schools in the city. We're quite close to the main train station and some of the major connection points for our public transport line. So I think having something higher capacity here will not only help the people in the surrounding neighborhood, but also the surrounding villages and towns, whether they're coming through on bus or by train. This is looking pretty good, and I've definitely overcompensated when it comes to the number of school spaces in this part of the city. But as I said, I imagine this will eventually all be filled up. And as I said before, this wasn't going to be the last time that we saw this asset. I think it's such a wonderful, modular, interesting looking building. I've put a couple of these two together, rotated them 90 degrees and kind of matched up the windows, and you can barely see that they're two separate assets at all. And what I really like is this little overhang area. So even though this pedestrian walkway is quite narrow, it's widened up by the two courtyards, or the front of the building, and I think it just, it makes such an interesting looking asset. And to prevent the look of repetition, we could add upgrades. So I've added the rooftop playground to this, and I think I might actually upgrade the back just so that we've got even more capacity. And around the back here, again, I've got a couple of these upgrades because they were clashing when we didn't have the upgrade, but this just makes it look a little bit cleaner. I did retain the small elementary school, the one that we originally had on the site. I like to think that maybe this is for younger students. Maybe there's a play school or a creche, and I think this is more suitable for that environment, whereas this is much more likely to be middle school, so like juniors and secondary school. And then over here we've got the Japanese one, which I imagine could be maybe a specialist school. We do have a little bit of space in the back, so I'm not sure whether we could fit this community playground. We could if it didn't snap to the building itself. I'm just going to put this in, and then I'm going to remove a couple of these buildings here actually, and then we're going to put it in because I think it's quite a nice addition to have some sports facilities with these assets. We haven't got a large play field with any of this, so we'll have to see what we can do and see if this is quite nice. So we'll just flatten the ground a little bit. I don't want to place it and it be super wonky. And yeah, that just snaps onto the back there, doesn't it? Yeah, I think that's quite nice. And for an elementary school, this is a pretty good size. It doesn't need to be any more dramatic than that. So far in the city, we've got quite a lot of elementary schools now. So let's have a quick look at our education levels. So we've got capacity for a whopping 18,550, which is fantastic. That means we can continue to grow the city without having to worry about increasing school capacity. Our high school capacity is doing quite well as well. We've got room for 2,400 students. Not everybody is going. We've got a shortfall of around about 250 people that could go, which choose not to go. And in college, we also have capacity for 10,000, which is crazy. I'm not sure whether that's a bug because we've only got one college in the build so far. The one place that we are lacking, and we do have eligibility, and that is university. With a potential 1,700 students, I think it is time to place a university. That should help increase the number of educated citizens choosing to stay and study in Sunny Isle, allowing us to build more offices, fill all the job positions that are in those higher level assets. We've got a little bit of space here. We could potentially put the university there, or we could place it over the road. And I'd like to see what we can fit in. But first of all, let's head to our development tree. Let's go to education and let's unlock the university. So that cost us 2 development points. And we'll have a quick look at the vanilla university. I think that one's probably going to be a little bit too large for this area. It's got quite a lot of space, which is unused parkland, which I do think is a little bit over the top, but it would be suitable for a North American build, possibly a university city which is built around the asset itself. But our build, it just seems far too wasteful, especially on an island with very limited building space. Let's have a look at this modern architecture building and see if we can put this in. And I think just cozy up against the end of this road here would be great. And we get a beautiful sight line along this car parking avenue down to the building, and it's quite a modest size. It's to scale to everything else we've built so far. I quite like that. And let's have a close look at this asset itself. So we've got nice little pedestrian paths running all the way around the asset. I quite like that. Little car park on the side here, so we might need to scooch it over a little bit, but nope, it looks like we have access, which is good. And we've got a little pedestrian path going along here which we can fix up and integrate into the building itself. So that gives us 5,000 students, which is great, and in the future we can upgrade it to add an extra 750 students. So we do need to consider that we might want to add this onto the back here, so maybe leave this area free. Let's have a look at the library itself. Again, the library is another asset that we can add on, and this one could be added on to the end there. This one provides Another boost in capacity, 400 students. And then we've got the extension wing itself, which just simply adds onto the footprint of the original building. I think I'm tempted to put on the library right off the bat. I think it's a really attractive looking building. I like the color scheme, and I think it would finish off the corner of our campus quite nicely. Yeah, it looks good. Let's take a quick look at this roundabout that we worked on in the last episode. I think we needed to add another turn lane for people exiting the city and remove any sort of obstruction in front of this firehouse, which isn't in the best location, to be honest. Add a little tree here. That looks lovely. And then we can upgrade this road along here. Well, I say upgrade. I'm actually just widening the road using a 2-lane highway road with a medium. This is one that I created for the harbour area of the city. And what's great about using this road is that it's the same width as the asymmetric road. I can upgrade it in areas where we need an extra turn lane, especially at roundabouts, and it doesn't change the width of the road. And alongside this, we'll put a pedestrian path a good distance away from the road so that people feel comfortable walking along here. I'd like to also include some more residential and office development around here, integrating the school into the wider neighbourhood. I think this is possibly another great opportunity to include a high density building, and I opted to use one of these high density UK flats. Now, I thought the hedge park was a brilliant asset for a school campus. It comes with a stage and seating, and I imagine it would be a great outdoor space for ceremonies, assemblies, possibly even graduation. Lastly, I'd like to develop this small plaza which sits amongst the buildings, creating a shady haven away from any of the busy roads for people to enjoy their lunch. And that's where we'll leave it for today's episode of Sunny Isle. We've reimagined the city's education system, upgraded existing schools, created new modular campuses, and made sure our suburbs are ready for future growth. These changes aren't just about meeting today's needs, they're about building a foundation for generations to come. So, what do you think of the new school layouts? Do they work for the neighbourhoods? Or would you approach them differently? Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.